Internet, I like to talk to tomatoes. A squash can make me smile. I like to waltz with potatoes, up and down the produce aisle. Have I got a video for you? I am back, Internet, you picked your poison. It has been a heck of a while that I've done something that was not related to a school project. It's been bizarre, you know, university is university, so I haven't had a lot of time to do certain things. Believe me, I've been planning a certain video out for about 3 months. That first requires me to intake media, and I'm about halfway through a third of said media, so we'll see how that goes. But for now, I just gotta say, my childhood is no longer terrifying. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, earlier, I think it was last week, the newest of VeggieTales has come out. And oh boy, it was an impulse purchase and I did not care. I was like, you know what? VeggieTales is still my thing. Let's watch it. So yes, Crystal and my cousin Becky and I decided to watch the newest VeggieTales today. The best Christmas gift. I will get my main gripe with this thing out of the way and say, why did you recast Mr. Nezzer? I've heard a lot of people give some weird, like, testimony to, like, Mr. Nezzer is, like, you know, insert racially ambiguous character, and it's like, since when do these vegetables have races? I thought his race would have been zucchini. He is zucchini, right? You know, I thought that Jimmy and Jerry's race would have been squash. I thought that Larry's race was a cucumber. So the fact they had to recast him, his voice is so weird. I don't know a lot about Adventures in Odyssey because I never listened to it. It was one of those things where when I was a kid, people kept pushing it on me and they were like, I don't even know, it was like, Crystal liked it and then it was like, Nikki, you'll like this, you'll like this. Did we tell you that you're probably gonna like this? Until finally, I pushed it back and said, no, never bring it up again. But there's like that one old character who they had to like recast like several times and everyone has their opinion on his voice and like which actor they prefer to voice him. Let's just say, oh, Mr. Nezzer's more my jam. Anyway, enough of the complaining out of the way. The actual story. If you watch me, you may or may not watch Say Goodnight Kevin, but back when he was reviewing his top 5 VeggieTales episodes, he was talking about how it felt like the Muppets in the sense that it was like all these familiar characters and they were putting on a show and it was fun. And honestly, this new one feels even similar to the Muppets than everything else did. It was literally on a stage. I will admit though, I did initially find it mildly not unsettling, but not right when he was the one playing the tuba in the theme song and not Larry. But, you know, things change. I have to learn how to put up with that. I mean, heck, if I do actually want to study abroad in South Korea, then I'm gonna need to get over that. So that was a bit bizarre, but also there was a lot of stuff that was kind of like the backstage work, kind of like what you'd see on the Muppets, primarily with Kermit where he's saying, oh no, we've got all this and that going on, oh no, what is this? And then they would go back to the main stage, here's the fun thing happening, here's like all the awesome productions, you know? And then backstage, on stage, so on and so forth. The episode, I'm having a hard time thinking about how to describe it. It did make us laugh on several occasions. It was funny, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it felt like it was at the stage that it was at, kind of like around the time of Abe and the Amazing Promise, where it was just starting to go downhill, and I don't know if that's because everything's rocky or what that might be. It might just be because I'm an adult now. But at the same time, I don't know, because if I look at like the old VeggieTales, I might be, you know, film snob from, you know, taking 2 film classes and be like, continuity error. Literally, after we watched that, and they were bringing up old stuff at the end, and we watched The Toilet Saved Christmas right after, because my cousin was like, oh, that was like my favorite thing! So we rewatched it, and when the snowman's head fell off, and the kids go into the house on like the sled or whatever, the snowman's head was back on, and it was like, continuity error. His head should be smashed on the ground, and then when they leave the house, his head was gone again. So it's stupid stuff like that that I just nitpick. Get over it. I don't let it destroy the movie-going experience, but it's not like those small continuity errors are gonna like mess me up, but it's like, it's hard to explain because the original VeggieTales had such magical charm to it. I can't even explain it, and they still hold up to this day for me. Whereas when I was like 12, and like back then, keep in mind, I had low standards for movies, okay? So the new episode, it starts off, they're saying they get a letter from this kid who's saying that he's not excited to celebrate Christmas because everything is getting pretty stressful in his life. So what's he gonna do? How does he actually make himself want to celebrate Christmas? Or why is Christmas even worth celebrating? You know, we have to do these things, you know, we gotta make sure that they're done, right? So first we get Archibald destroying Jimmy and Jerry's hearts by showing them traditional Christmas dishes around the world, which go way beyond turkey or ham. And the two gourds, who have always been categorized by their love of food, are suddenly not so hungry. They then bail and decide that they're going to go to Burger Bell and instead order real Christmas food. Cheeseburgers. You know how it is. Larry basically buys all the decorations except for a Christmas tree. That's actually where one of like the funny jokes comes in, because he tries to decorate a coat rack and Bob's saying that's not a tree, and then he's just kind of like, what is a tree? And it's like Larry going into like this weird, stupid attempt at like, I guess, philosophical question, being like, yes, Bob, it may not be a traditional Christmas tree, but when you really think about it, what is a tree? And Larry, of all characters, having that moment was just funny for all of us. It was great, honestly. So then Pa Grape shows up and he decides that they're going to describe the true meaning of Christmas, which basically leads on to the whole shebang you'd expect about hearing the Christmas story. And of course, Crystal had to be one of those Bible school snobs that's like,
actually, the wise men shouldn't be there for another, 2 years, because technically, they didn't come when he was first born. I go to Bible school.
Crystal, I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry. You know what? You know what I'm really sorry for, though? Let me rephrase. The wise people. I think that's what they said. It was wise people, wise persons, wise something started with a P. But basically, because they cast Madame Blueberry as one of the Magi. So yeah, they see Jesus born. They start closing the show, all that fun stuff. Mr. Nestor, with his new odd voice, comes back and he's saying, you promised me a Christmas tree. Then Larry goes back into his whole shebang about how, you know, what is a tree. That if you didn't recognize the little cameo over there, we get a visit from an old friend who we thought died in season 1. And then they go into like a weird song that I don't know if it's just because I'm not a kid anymore, but also I think it could just be that it is very much appealing to kids again. Like, kids. Let's make a brief comparison with VeggieTales, where it's like, compare old VeggieTales to Pixar, and like newer VeggieTales to like Sesame Street, for lack of better ideas. With Sesame Street, it is very obvious that it's for young kids. I don't know many adults who have the mental capacity to sit there, unless they're with their child and trying to help their child learn. But if they were to sit there on their own, just listen to Me Want Cookie.
One BTS album. Two BTS album. Three BTS album.
You know what I mean? After a while, as an adult, even as a kid over the age of like, I can't even say over the age of 5, because like I said, I had low standards as a kid. Nowadays I refuse to see live-action Disney reboots and Illumination animation films on the sheer fact that I expect more from the media I consume other than pointless reboots and mind-numbing fluff films. If I have kids, God forbid, they will never watch those films in my house. Because they can watch good movies, like actual old Disney and Pixar films, and like I said, old VeggieTales films. But back to my main point, now look at Pixar films. I am 20 years old. You want to know what actually made me cry when I watched Inside Out? It wasn't when Riley started crying. Like, that almost got me, but do you want to know what really got me? When Bing Bong died. Want to know why? Stupid, embarrassing confession. I had a lot of imaginary friends. Basically, I've just felt lost and alone because initially they were characters that I was making when I was kind of in my Crystal makes cool things, let's copy Crystal's things so that I can make my own cool things because Crystal's cool. My parents will think that's like the exact opposite, and I was like, anything Crystal does I refuse to do. It's the fact that they picked the few things that I'd never wanted to do in the first place and tried to insist that I would like it. That made me resent it. But no, back when I was in that phase, I was writing stories and stuff. I mean, I still do, but I don't steal Crystal's ideas anymore. And they just became so real to me. It was like, I would literally pray, God, let my 8 fictional friends come to life. I had 8. It's embarrassing. I literally prayed and prayed and prayed. And you know what? I didn't forget them. I still can remember most of them. I probably can't remember all their names. But believe me, I remember all the paper I wasted drawing them, all the countless hours I did of writing stories, and then when I added more friends, incorporating them into those stories, it was like, I'm glad I didn't know what Wattpad was when I was a kid. Otherwise, I might be responsible for the next after. And so to see Bing Bong, like, the character that, like, he was very different from my imaginary friends because, you know, he was like, I got a wagon rocket ship, you know, I made out of cotton candy, I cry like, I think it was gumdrops, whatever it was, he cries. And seeing him just being like, I'm dying, it's okay, you know, you guys have to be saved, you're more important than me, and then when he's like evaporating into nothing, and then he says, take her to the moon for me. I could cry right now, honestly. Like, I'm legit tearing up just thinking about that when he's like, take her to the moon for me. I don't know, I think it's just because I'm like such a big dreamer and it feels like, it's like I don't have a lot of dreams that have like been forgotten. But it's the amount of times that people have told me that they aren't going to happen, so I felt like I've tried to throw them into that not Thanos duster of my forgotten memories. Gosh, I didn't want to cry on YouTube. And it was like, you see? Even talking about that gets an emotional reaction from me. The old VeggieTales, like even just now, when we watched that, I was like, oh gosh, I never realized how like sinister Mr. Nezer's like typecast was as a whole. Like, I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious he was in Rack Shack and Benny, whatever, but it, you know those moments where it's like you've always kind of known, but then it just clicks? Tonight was that click where I was like, when Larry says, just don't send us to Pugsville, the bridge is out, and he's like,
oh, the bridge is out. Well then, you know what? Let's send you boys there so that you guys can fall off a bridge while you're tied up in a sled and die.
That just kind of clicked in my head tonight. So yeah, Mr. Nezer is more dark and sinister, but they all have like amazing characters, and it's honestly just so cool to me. I've said this before, VeggieTales will always hold a special place in my heart, and honestly, I have very strong intentions of buying as many VeggieTales DVDs as I can when I grow up, when I move out, because you know what? Even if I don't have kids, even if I never get nieces and nephews, I'm gonna be watching them. And if there's a future husband out there, he can deal with it. But overall, this experience felt really odd. I don't really know what it is. Again, it felt like it was kind of in the newer genre. Like, it wasn't VeggieTales in the House bad, because that was bad. It was atrocious. If, like, If I said that the newer stuff was kind of like Sesame Street, then VeggieTales in the House and in the City would be like if Barney and that weird infomercial on how to use computers in like the 80s or 90s or wherever that was had a baby. Like, honestly, the love child between internet how-to video and Barney the dinosaur is VeggieTales in the House and in the City. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? Honestly, a lot of things were also really freaking relieving after VeggieTales in the House and in the City became a thing. For instance, Junior's voice is back. Thank goodness. He was the voice I was the most upset with. Mr. Nezer is back to Mr. Nezer, and he's not Mr. Ikebezer or whatever the heck his name was then. The French peas are once again identical. Thank goodness. Jimmy and Jerry don't have stretch marks. They don't have irises. I don't know. I want to have hope that this is going to get better and that they will be able to re-spark that glory that I had back when VeggieTales first got started in the 90s. Because dang, VeggieTales is older than I am. And it's crazy to me that it's lasted this long, even if it had a very rocky few years. But honestly, I'm glad that Phil Vischer got to write this. Because again, it did still entertain me. It just wasn't quite my forte of old VeggieTales stuff, you know what I mean? That's about all I have to say for this. Overall, I mean, it's not bad. I make it sound like it's not good either. I don't want to say it's serviceable because I know there are probably going to be kids out there that think this is hilarious. I'm 20 years old. I did enjoy it. It's just, you know, I've seen better. If you want me to list my favorite VeggieTales off the top of my head, it would be like Lyle the Kindly Viking, Esther the Girl Who Became Queen, King George and the Ducky, Josh and the Big Wall, probably Dave and the Giant Pickle. Basically both the original Larry Boys, so Larry Boy and the Fit from Outer Space and Larry Boy and the Rumor Reader are both really good as well. Even the Grapes of Wrath is really good, honestly, man. But yeah, I really hope that they can do better, and I hope that they do continue to inspire and entertain kids like they had me when I was a kid. I would just like to say a quick thanks to Phil Vischer, Mike Nawrocki. I am so sorry, Mike, whatever your last name is. I thought it was easier for me to look at than that. Phil, thank you to your wife, and thank you to the VeggieTales crew for trying and for continuing to keep this going. I know that all good things have to die at some point, but honestly, I like to hope that that some point isn't necessarily soon for VeggieTales. If you guys enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up, and hey, maybe consider subscribing to my channel, because yes, I do want to put out more content than, you know, my college assignments, which I know there's going to be at least one more this semester because it's part of my final project, so that one's probably going to be a bit more fun, but we'll see. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and you survived, as did I, and so did VeggieTales. Peace out.